If you want to catch more bass this summer and make tackle while you're doing it, then this video is for you. Today I'm going to show you the best 3 lead do-it molds for summer bass fishing and how each one gives you a serious edge over the competition. So whether you're fishing topwater at sunrise, dragging a deep rock pile, or picking apart cover with Finesse, these 3 do-it molds are what you need. I'm going to be talking about a buzzbait, the Buzzkill buzzbait from do-it molds. I'm going to be talking about a football jig. It's the weedless football head with holder mold, and then also a Finesse shaky head. It's the Shake It jig from do-it molds. All these things are available at the do-it molds website. If you want to check out anything that I'm talking about in today's video, make sure to go down in the description and click on my affiliate link. It'll take you right over to the website, and then it'll let them know that I sent you. So the first mold that we're going to be talking about is probably one of all of our favorites, which is fishing a buzzbait or fishing topwater. Why I picked this buzzbait is because I catch a ton of fish on a buzzbait and the ones that I make with my do-it mold specifically. So inside of this mold is the do-it mold Buzzkill buzzbait mold. This thing flat out gets bit, guys. I'm able to design this thing to my specific specifications on the water, and I can build the buzzbait. I can have them whatever color I want, change my blades around, do little tiny things that make it squeal a little bit louder, play with different trailers. I can do so many different things when I build them myself that it just flat out gives me the best opportunity to catch those fish when they want to eat a buzzbait. So a couple of features that I really like about this buzzbait is the head design. The head design makes this buzzbait plane on the water very, very nicely. It stays high up in the water column. It gets that blade to really turn on top of the water, give it a good sound, and I like the thicker wire form as well. That thicker wire form allows for maximum sound coming off of that blade. It gives more surface area for that blade to connect to the wire form and give off as much sound as possible. So I store my buzzbaits completely plain in the box. I don't have any blades put on. I have the rivets. I have everything that I need to build that buzzbait inside my box, piece by piece, and I put them together on the fly. This includes skirts. So most of my buzzbaits in the box never have skirts on them, and I primarily fish them without skirts. There's times where I go back and forth, but primarily I fish them without skirts. But it's always a good idea to have skirts available, because there's times where I want to use a real thin trailer, and having that skirt on hand gives it a little bit more bulk, and it just lets that bait track a little bit better in the water. So the next mold that we're going to be talking about is one of my favorite ways to fish. Topwater is amazing, but I really like throwing a jig. I like throwing a deep jig, shallow jig, I don't really care. But for some reason, getting that bite with the jig is one of my favorite things. You're just dragging that thing over some rocks, and then all of a sudden you just get that thunk or that little tap, and or sometimes you pop it off cover, and then all of a sudden it just goes slack and that fish has it. Fishing a jig is absolutely one of my favorite ways to fish in the summertime. If I can get away with fishing a jig, and they're quality fish down there in the depths sometimes during the summer, that water starts getting nice and hot and those fish just kind of move down onto that deep structure to kind of get away from that warmer water, a jig can be a great way to catch them. So right here is the weedless football head with holder mold. I really like this head. This thing flat out catches them. Ever since I started making my own jigs with this mold, I catch more jig fish. I don't know exactly what it is, but here's my theories. I really believe that there's something to the design of this football head itself. Now, if you notice when I was showing you the inside of this mold, there's a flat side on this jig. This jig has that flat side on it, and I think it really helps it stand up more than the rest. So that way when that thing's down there, you have that trailer on that jig kind of giving off that kick, whether it's a double tail grub or a cross style bait or a beaver, it doesn't really matter, but it's going to give off the most action out of those tails, those claws, whatever kind of a presentation you're putting on there. And a lot of action can be good in summertime. The water's warm. Generally, those fish are willing to move around in the summertime. So having a little bit extra action mimics what's going on down the water, I think, a little bit better. Now, sometimes you're going to want to have less action, which I like to mess around with my trailers at that point. So sometimes I have that double tail grub is going to give me a lot of action. Then I'm going to have a realistic craw presentation. And then other times I'm going to have, a beaver style bait that doesn't put off quite as much action. The action of the trailer can be key when it comes to jig fishing. Now, the first jig that I usually pick up is going to be the 1/2 ounce size, but I've been finding myself gravitating towards that 3/4 a little bit more than I have in the past. And I think that that's because it just really helps me maintain bottom contact. A lot of the lakes that I fish have a lot of wind in the afternoon hours. There's just a normal wind that comes through the lake in the afternoon hours. And when I'm fishing that jig nice and deep, Sometimes that 3/4 just allows me to feel everything a little bit better. And I think that maintaining that bottom contact on a jig as much as possible is key, because if you think about those crawfish, they're not going to be jumping up off the bottom unless they're being attacked. But if they're just kind of roaming around down there, they're probably not jumping around. They're going to be crawling over those rocks nice and slow, which is what we want that jig to do. Now, giving that jig a couple of pops here and there can be beneficial because it's going to mimic that crawfish running away from them, not wanting to get eaten. But overall, when you're just fishing it, typically you're going to want it crawling over, maintaining good bottom contact. And I think sometimes going up to that heavier jig allows us to do that a little bit better. So we've all had those days where they don't want to eat topwater, they don't want to eat that big jig, but they want to eat something finesse. Sometimes that could be a drop shot, but something that I found is real key during the summertime, especially for me, is a shaky head. One of the things that I like about shaky heads is I prefer a screw lock. I know a lot of people don't like the screw lock, but I prefer a screw lock. There's a few things that I like to do to the screw lock that allows me to get just as good of a hookup ratio as any other shaky head, and I'll explain that here in a second. So like any finesse presentation, the finesse shaky head is going to excel in those tougher fishing conditions. Think no wind, it's super hot, maybe there's just been a lot of pressure on the lake, but you got to do something subtle in order to get these fish to bite. And that's when the shaky head's going to shine. You're going to be able to pick apart docks, pick apart cover, pick apart rock piles, and you're going to do it in a way that isn't going to spook any of the fish. You're going to be able to really drag this thing around, nice and subtle, light line, all those different things that are going to add to your chances of getting bit. Now the shaky head that I'm going to go with is the Do It Molds Shake It jig with screw lock. I really like this design. I think that the screw lock in there is a plus. There's some people that don't like having the screw lock in here, and they think that it affects the hookup ratio because it can act as a weed guard sometimes with your soft plastic. But here's how you avoid that. I put the screw lock in there full size when I'm pouring up these jigs. But then when it comes to fishing them, I'm gonna cut that screw lock down to where there's only 1 or 2 of the little rings that maintain the bait on the jig. What that does is it allows that plastic to come off the screw lock when those fish bite, and then you have no issues with hookup ratios. And in fact, you get as good, if not better, hookup ratios than your other shaky heads. Having that plastic come off of that screw lock is what solves all of those problems. Now that's not something that I figured out on my own. Someone taught me that myself. But it is definitely something that highly increases your hookup ratios and allows you to fish that presentation with the screw lock. Having that screw lock on there with that round bend hook is also a plus because it keeps that bait, whatever you're using, probably a worm, but it's going to allow that thing to be super, super straight, which gives it the most natural presentation down there. Now, anytime you're fishing finesse or a small little shaky head, having the right hook in there is a plus. Now, being able to play around with the hook that you choose for the different shaky head presentations is key, guys, because you want a thin wire that's also sharp that also isn't going to bend out. So being able to play around with different brands, different models, different styles, different hook points, all of those things are going to allow you to pick the best shaky head for you. Now, you don't want a big gaff down there, especially if you have a spinning rod, because you're not going to be able to drive that hook through the fish's mouth with the equipment that you have. You're going to have to set the hook too hard, which then causes you to potentially break your line. But you want something very, very sharp and as thin a wire as you can get away with, so that way the lighter hook set that you give based upon line size is going to get that hook into the fish's mouth. Some people want to oversize their hooks as much as possible, but actually playing around with it and putting the right wire size, especially when it comes to finesse fishing, is super, super key. And remember, guys, everything that we've talked about in this video is going to be linked down in the description through my Do It Molds affiliate link. So if you missed one of the different molds or want to get more information from the Do It Molds website, make sure to go to my affiliate link, click on it, go over to that website so that way they know that I sent you. So if you're looking for any molds to tailor towards summertime, and trust me, guys, these things work outside the summer too, but these are just my favorites when it comes to summertime fishing. Make sure to keep these ones in the back of your mind. These are going to help you catch a lot of fish this summer, and it's going to keep you versatile, everything from shallow to deep and finesse, all in these 3 molds. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.